Hi guys. So I'm going to present over using Plagnets to manage student growth. This is something that I just started this year. It's become a pretty big deal in a lot of online professional learning communities for the phys ed community. Excuse me. So if you guys have questions as I move through this, please ask. I have a couple slides. The way that I teach is I basically throw a slide up. I talk about it for a little while. And then, so that's what I'm going to present. If you guys have questions about anything, please let me know. Like I said, my name is Travis French. I teach 5th through 8th, so our middle school is a little different. We have 5th graders in our building, which is can create some issues at sometimes. But I'm at the middle school at Sadell, and then obviously there's my email or my Twitter if you guys want to contact me via either of those. So I'm going to talk about kind of the background of Plicker magnets, or Plagnets as they're called now. I'll talk about the process and materials that I've used, how I used it for attendance and classroom management. The big thing that I like about it is skill acquisition and student independence. It's kind of changed the way I teach, just this one simple piece of technology. And then at the end, I'll see if you guys see any issues that you might have in your classroom, things that come up, things that I've seen. And then if we have time, I'll kind of talk about where I want to take it further from here and hopefully get a little more student engagement. So, all right, first the background for Plagnets. It started, there's a guy named Joey Feith who runs the physicaleducator.com. He's, I don't want to say a giant in the PE community, but he's always on the cutting edge of things. So he's a Canadian guy, he runs that website, and he's been using regular magnets in his classroom for a long time. So either a basic magnet or a magnet with a number, and then what he will do, I kind of have the board set up over here. He has his students move their number across as they accomplish different things. So a real rudimentary one might be, I'll show you guys some videos, but like dribble the basketball 5 times. And once they achieve that, they're going to put their magnet here, they're at level 1, and they move across. So he's been using that for a long time. There's some other PE teachers that use that across the nation as well. And what they're kind of finding was that it's really hard to track individual information when you do that. You can look in at a glance and say 80% of my students are at level 3 or on grade level, but you don't know who exactly is. So from there's a guy named Bart Jones who teaches at Van Meter Elementary actually. So he's from around here. He's another big giant, especially on Twitter. He has used Plickers, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with Plickers, but we can go into that in a little bit. But he's used Plickers in his classroom for 3 or 4 years. He just hasn't put the magnet aspect. So he's getting feedback on multiple choice questions, but he wasn't using them on the levels. He wasn't incorporating the magnets. Then a guy named Mike Ginicola, who runs an awesome website called the Phys Ed Depot. I don't think anybody in here is from PE, so all this PE stuff is kind of falling on deaf ears, but hopefully you can take this stuff and apply it to other things. Mike decided to take kind of the two things and marry them and put them together. And so he worked on this for a long, long time. So that's kind of where he calls them Plagnets. Since he pretty much invented them, I don't feel like I can change the name necessarily, and it seems to work. So, but I want to make sure I give due credit where it is. He basically joined the magnets and the Plickers. So I'll kind of come around and give you guys 1 or 2 examples of what I use so you can kind of take a look at it as I'm talking about it. So these are the magnets, and then there's a little Plicker that they've put on the top, and if you're still not familiar with Plickers, I'll talk about those here in a second. Now it's at the point where, so Mike kind of came up with this during the last school year, and then over the summer I decided to incorporate it, and then now basically I just go on Twitter and I find out all the super awesome stuff that people are doing. And I'm just not quite there yet, but it's really nice to get those ideas. So that's kind of where we're at with the background. It's come a long ways in the last year, so we're still learning a lot of new things, and hopefully we can apply it to different things. The process. So obviously I handed out the magnets. These cheap little magnets, you can get like, I think 30 or 60 in a set for $10 on Amazon. That's the one that I'm using. A lot of people have started doing awesome stuff, like there's magnetic paint, I guess, and then there's magnetic tape. So a lot of people are using that stuff. This works best for me. I have class sizes of about 50, And so I have 5 classes a day, so they cycle through. So these seem to hold up pretty good against the wear and tear that all my students put on them. Anyway, so if you're not familiar with Plickers, basically if you guys look at your magnet, it's almost like a QR code, and you can rotate it 4 different ways. Each side has a letter facing up, so there's A, B, C, D, and then there should be a number. So each student is assigned a number, and then they can answer a question one of 4 ways, either A, B, C, or D, right? So the way we use it in classes, I use it for attendance first, and I just have that set up so anybody that comes in, A, B, C, or D, it just scans their attendance, and I can see who's there. But here would be kind of a screenshot as my students are moving their magnets across. I go up just with the iPad, and it's a free app, the Plicker app. Scan it, and it takes about 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes, 5 seconds. Wow, 5 minutes would not be efficient at all. And then, so this is kind of what it looks like prior to as it starts to populate all the letters. And then the one on the left, I don't know how well you guys can see it from over there, but each magnet pops up with the kid's name and then what their answer was to that letter. And then I get all the feedback, and it kind of brings all that out. The thing that I really like about it is as I scan it, as they're going through, I can say, all right, Billy and Steve are at level 3, but Tommy's only at level 1. What's that reasoning? So I can go over, talk to him. Is it a skill thing? Is it you're not getting along with your peers? Is it you don't have equipment? What is the issue here? So that's probably one of my favorite things that I can go around, see where everybody is at. It's super simple. And then the last part was the mini Plickers templates. Like I said, it's really popular in the phys ed world now. So there's like a global shared PE drive, and there's maybe 20 different people that have created templates for the Plickers. The one I have, as you can see, it's colored, and it has the letters, and then it just has their numbers so they know. There are other people that have much, much fancier ones than these, but they're all free. And basically, people have just taken actual Plicker cards, which are about, I don't know, maybe that big or so, and shrunk them down so that you can read them on the magnets. So that's kind of a nice thing. At the end of the presentation, if you guys ever have any questions, if you want any of that material, I can send those out to you. I can email it to you right here. I have it on my computer as well. So that's kind of the setup. I use my iPad pretty much all the time for it. I've started using my phone. I just put the Plickers app on my phone, and that way, since we only have one iPad in my classroom, I can use the iPad for one thing, and I can go over and scan it with my phone. It's a little bit easier to do. But the app is free. It's on the Apple Store. I know it's in the Droid Store, which is Google Play now, I think, or kind of in that store. So everything's free. The only thing that I really had to buy was the $20 worth of magnets, which for my management, my classroom management, that worked out pretty good. Yes, absolutely.
So when you go back to that, how does it know, because does it matter which letter is up? Is that
It does. It does.
Okay,
Yep,
so
sorry.
that's how you do a column.
Yep, my bad.
Okay.
And normally what I do is, on the levels, I'll write what letter I want facing up. When we first started, I just had level 4 was A, level 3 was B. They got into that group, but I didn't want it to seem like if you achieve level A or level 4, you're going to have an A. Because my main thing for this is just formative assessment. And so the way that we do it is they earn points for the day if they are moving their magnet across honestly. And that way I get formative assessment, and I can go back and talk to them about what they need to work on. Very good question. Thanks, Marissa. Last week I actually switched around, so level 1 was A. Little bit of confusion. They're kind of in the same mode that they were in the past, but what I'm finding is with a lot of stuff, my students are picking up a lot of stuff really fast on their own. And I don't know if it's because I'm not like piecemealing it to them and treating them like little kids, I guess. I just kind of say, here's what we're doing, and I try and go around and figure out what they need help with, and they picked it up pretty fast. So thank you for that question, Marissa. Any other questions about how? Okay. Attendance and classroom management. So when I first started doing it, the biggest thing that I saw with it was I can do attendance really fast. Instead of having the kids come down and either sit in a spot, I used to use like little card things. This, they come in, they move it up right away, and so as you can see on here and then the board over here, normally all these, the magnets would be on a table. So they come in, they set up their magnet here. After a couple minutes when they're expected to be in there, I can just scan this side so I can see exactly who's there for class. Then as they go through their skills, they move them across the levels. So I leave them on the levels, and when the next class comes, they just take them off the levels and put them back in the attendance. So one of my big things was I didn't want to spend each class messing around with a bunch of magnets, and the fact that they're moving them from attendance to where they're actually supposed to be has cleared up a ton of time for me, and we're able to get a lot more active quicker, and my attention is able to get on the students a lot faster instead of trying to do attendance for 5 minutes, which was taking me quite a while. Classroom management, the thing that I really like, as you can see the picture down here, what I'll do is I'll just post the skill levels or what I expect them to do. And it took a couple weeks to kind of get them trained and figure out exactly how we do it, but now they pretty much go on their own. Say I have 50 kids in a class, maybe 30 of them are pretty much working completely autonomously. They don't need a lot of feedback. They're moving through the levels like I think they should. And maybe there's 10 more that are kind of struggling with auxiliary things that aren't really related to the actual skill development. And then maybe there's 10 kids that are off task or something like that, which seems like a lot, but compared to prior to doing this, when I just give them a practice task and I'd have 45 of them off task, I'll take the 10 over the 45 right now. So real quick, I just want to show you guys a little video I took of Elijah coming in, and I just kind of wanted him to demonstrate how they come in and do the attendance and what that looks like. Obviously, Elijah's a pretty good student, so I kind of cherry-picked the kids that I was going to have demonstrate stuff. But it wouldn't be very helpful if you saw a kid not doing it, I guess. So, all right. So Elijah comes into the gym. He knows that he needs to go grab his magnet. Just walks over, pretty simple. And he's going to find his magnet. In the past, the way that I would do this is either I would have cards that they would have to flip around, which took a lot more time on my part, or else they would sit down into like home base spots is what I called them. And that just took a lot of time, and that created a lot of behaviors. So as you can see, Elijah's picking through his. They're color-coded as well. So a lot of them will come in, they know they're yellow. So maybe there's 6 or 7 yellows. They only have to look through a couple yellows, and they find their 42 or 45. Elijah's obviously is at the top, make it as difficult as possible for him, and then he puts it up. But that, to me, that minute, I think it's 46 seconds, Elijah has already done his attendance. It'll take me another 30 seconds maybe once they're all done to pull up my iPad and scan it all, and then maybe another 30 seconds to actually plug it into my attendance. Whereas in the past, I would sit down, mark them all off, and that could take a lot of time. For me, in my classroom, efficiency is key because it keeps the kids on task. I think that's a big thing in all classrooms, but again, with my 50 students, if one of them gets off task and I have to be paying attention to them, then there's 49 other students that get off task. So the more I can minimize that, the better for me. Questions about kind of attendance and how I manage class with these at all?
What does your attendance go into? So once you scan them, what does it go into that you?
So I'll just pull up one of these old Plickers ones. So here's kind of how the app is set up. I have all the classes here. It's really easy to plug in the student's name. I haven't seen an Excel spreadsheet that you can download and plug in your students to like a lot of other lists, which is kind of frustrating. But on the actual web page, you can just type in first names and it assigns them a number right away. So I would just print off my class list, type in the numbers, and it populates them pretty quick. But when they come in, so say here's 5th grade, 7th period. I have a history right here of all the different, no, that's not right. Let's try it. So the attendance pops up like that on the Plickers app. So these aren't really important to me because that means they're here because they've actually put their magnet up. But here I can see, so-and-so aren't here. From there, I mark it down on a piece of paper and then I plug it into our PowerSchool. So it doesn't sync up with PowerSchool right now. I don't know if they have intentions of doing that. I think right now they kind of want to keep it on their own and not try and sync it up to a lot of stuff. But so there is that extra step, which is a good question. It doesn't automatically populate into my attendance for my school. But
Does it into any student information system?
Not that I know of. I don't think they've had it sync up with anything. That's a good question, I guess. And like as more people start to use it, So I know that it's fairly popular in education. I know that the PE community is a fairly loud and obnoxious community at times. So I know that on Twitter we have been pushing Plickers a lot. Like before they created the small ones, they have on their website, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 pre-sized options for those, and they don't have the mini ones yet, which we're like, we've already developed these. I don't know why you guys can't just put them on your website. And so I don't know a whole lot about the company, but my guess is as more and more people start to use it, and the more districts I go into, the more kind of random people are using it. Like in our district, I have 2 or 3 people in our middle school that are also using Plickers, not the magnets, but just using them for some feedback. So hopefully as more people use them, they'll start to open it up to other management systems, and it'll be able to, you can put it in there. But as of now, I don't know. Yeah.
On the topic of the smaller QR codes, I've used them in the classroom when they're pretty large.
Yeah.
When they're smaller, does it take long to scan them?
No, I couldn't believe how quickly it went. And that was, I think, again, smarter people than me sized it down and figured out how small they could actually get it when it would still read. And so I have no problems. I use my phone, and maybe I'll stand about that far back, but it populates all of them right away. So it's pretty quick. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any issues with kids putting up the wrong one for attendance? Like,
Sometimes.
but for the most part, they're
Honestly, for my students, it has not really been an issue, which blows me away. One of the things that I found, we had been doing this for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then we came in and I was doing a summative assessment over those 2 days, so I was only having them use it for attendance. They weren't moving theirs across, which that's something I can address later, which I think I'm going to change up a little bit, but they weren't using them for the levels that day. And as we started to do our assessment and we're working through some different activities, I look over and there's kids moving theirs across the levels. And I was like, I love that you're still doing that, but there are no levels. So I don't know where you think you're moving them right now. I like that you're still in the groove and you think you're level 2, but I haven't posted what the expectation is for level 2. So that also made me think maybe I need to go back and revisit the leveled expectations and what they need to be able to do. But what I have found is that they love using them. They get to manage their own learning at their own speed, which I think they like. They have a lot of buy-in. For my content area, it seems like it's less about knowledge acquisition, but really it's skill acquisition. So it's kind of the same thing. But I think that they feel like they're not competing against other people. Like one of the big things I thought it would be is they'd all be like, well, I'm a level 4. I know it right away because I'm awesome. But for the most part, I hate to say 100% because that's just not the case ever. But for the most part, they work across the levels. They do what they're supposed to. When I scan it, I don't see a lot of people in the level 3 or 4 that I know shouldn't be there. I'll have 1 or 2 every once in a while, but you kind of have that. I have a good idea of where you should be. It's nice to have the data, but I have a good idea of where you should be, and for the most part, it always seems to match up with what I think their skill progression should be. I had one class that was putting up every one, like they would just come up and throw them all up. So when I would do attendance, everybody was there every single day, which I knew wasn't the case. So we had to have a conversation, but after talking to them one day and making sure they understood why it's an issue and why they can't do that, I haven't really had any problems since. You guys have any other questions about where we're at right now? Okay. So I kind of talked about skill acquisition and student independence. Here's an example of maybe what I would put up for the levels. So again, it's kind of small. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but it says Dribble Quest on the side. I did not create this. My leveled ones are not, they don't have any awesome graphics or anything like that. It just says level 1, 2, 3, 4. But I used this one and put this up, so as the kids would come up, level 1 says dribble in place 10 times, then repeat with the other hand. So they go to basketball, dribble in place with one hand, then the other hand, then they should move their magnet to level 1. Level 2, dribble while walking 15 times, then repeat with the other hand, then they move it to level 2. So this is kind of just a basic example of how I try and set up most of the days that we have class if we're learning a skill. The way I kind of set mine up is we'll work on skills for 3 or 4 days, and then we'll spend a day or 2, maybe 3 if we need it, doing a summative assessment to see how well they can apply those skills into an actual game, apply them to to an activity. So I'll show you guys a video about Dribble Quest real quick. Over here you can see, so this is a 6th grader, Kara. A lot of my students, they found it's so easy, and they see me doing this now. They want to do attendance, so now I'm actually releasing attendance to the students, and I don't even have to deal with that. Hopefully in an ideal world, I'll basically not really have to do a whole lot ever as a teacher, but I think we all know that's not going to happen. But this is nice. I like having the students have that buy-in there. They know what's going on. I've found that the more that they do, the more they understand the importance and why we're doing it, so they take it a little bit more seriously. Just a picture over here, as you can see, kids are playing. I think this was during a flag football unit. They're over there moving them as they need to. The measurable growth, that growth mindset, the buzzword, is huge in our district, obviously. We are not at standards-based grading, but we're hoping to move towards that. Well, whatever. We're moving towards it. We'll get there. I like this because this, to me, breaks it down into the same things that we're hoping to report on. Now, my levels are not quite to what I want them to be. Like, it's not what I would report out. My level 3 isn't necessarily grade level, and level 4 is above and beyond. That's something that I need to personally tinker with and kind of get those back to where I want them instead of just skill-related tasks that go along with what we're working on. But that's kind of my next step. I can see how it'll work. There's just a couple things I got to work on. The other thing here, targeted feedback. I kind of touched on this. The big thing for me was, say I'd release 50 kids to go work on, say we were going to work on dribbling, and I'd say, all right, here, I want you guys to all go work on dribbling with your right hand 10 times, then work on dribbling with your 10 times. And it's 50 kids all over the place, and I'm trying to pick out who can't do this. So what I like is the kid that gets that moves past level 1 right away. And then they're on level 3 or 4. And I can look over and see that, I don't know, Freddie or whoever is still on level 1. And I can go over and talk to him. More often than not, it's an issue with him and somebody that he's supposed to be partnering up with, which to me is usually a pretty easy thing. If it's a skill thing, I can go back and re-talk about what part of your hand contacts the ball. Are we keeping the dribble high or low? Just those different cues that I had talked about. So for me, the feedback has always been something I've struggled with as a teacher. And so this, I guess, to me, specifically tells me which students I need to work with, who are falling behind, and then who are kind of my higher flyers. So I'm going to show you guys a video real quick. So this is Paige doing the dribble quest. Again, one of my better students, but you guys can kind of see what it looks like then, how she uses it, or what she was doing here. Okay, so Paige, basically, she's looking at that dribble quest thing. I have that posted around the gym. She knows what it is. We've gone over it, and this is just kind of her working on it individually. So her partner's over here waiting. She's working on walking with her, dribbling with her right hand. Round comes back, walking, left hand dribbling. Oh, that's right. I got to go move my magnet. So Paige heads over and moves her magnet. Now you guys can see the rest of the chaos in the classroom. So she's at level 1. She knows she's at level 2 now. She gets it moved and she's heading back. As you can see, there's other kids moving them along. Just right here, I have a bunch of kids that are level 1, a bunch of kids that are level 2. It's probably about 50-50. As that continues to move, right, another third of them will move over to level 3, and so on. As more get into level 4, that lets me know so many of my students have gotten to level 4. Why aren't the level 1s and level 2s there? And like I said, I can go back and give that targeted feedback. I think I have one more video here. So here's a couple students. I don't want to unplug that. They are working on, so the day before when we did Paige's dribble quest, these guys are going to be working on passing drills. So they're supposed to be passing to a leading receiver from a moving piece. So they're either dribbling or they're receiving a pass. At this level, I think they're supposed to be receiving a pass and passing it out to another leading receiver. I think they're supposed to do 20 of them or so and then go move their magnet. So Nathan and Peyton here, just working on passing back and forth. Around the girls, not hitting them. Sorry about that camera work. So they've completed their 20 passes. They know they're going to go over, and they're going to move their magnets now. So like I said, at this point, I can see those guys are pretty advanced, and I know that just having had them for 3 years now, I know that they're going to progress a lot faster across those levels, especially as we're doing basketball. But if they get to level 4, and I still have quite a few kids over here that are still in the attendance and haven't hit level 1, that's concerning to me. 2 weeks ago, I had one where like I had 5 maybe in the level 4, and then pretty much everybody else was in the attendance. So that kind of let me know that obviously I dropped the ball big time on somewhere in my instruction, because if only 5 of my students understand what they're supposed to be doing, I probably made the big error and not necessarily them. So questions about, yeah?
Okay, so again, I have a little familiarity, but if you scan it once, I understand it gives you where they are, but then if you scan it again, because let's say you do it mid-class, you want to see who to pull, help
Yep.
out. Does it replace the answer, or does it give it another, it acts as another question?
You can replace the answer, or you can create another question.
Alright.
So, say we're doing offensive skill levels. If I wanted to, you can come down and I can clear the responses. Most of the time during class, I don't scan it. I just kind of use it as a snapshot to see where they're at. And I usually wait until the end of class to take that snapshot. And then, so the feedback is really nice during class. I can do that if I want. Most of the time what I do is I'll take that snapshot at the end of class, see where they're all at, and then to start the next class, the kids that were in the 1 and 2 level, those are the ones I go have a conversation with. For example, the next day then, so we did the dribble quest one that I talked about. The next day we worked on passing levels. A lot of the kids got through those 4 passing levels with plenty of time left. Conversation we had was, do you need to finish dribble quest then? Because if it is, then you need to go back and then you can just finish that. So we're kind of just building layers and layers, but hopefully then they still remember the levels that they're climbing to. So, very good question. Any others? So do you guys want me to demonstrate kind of how, I don't know how familiar we are with Plickers, if you want me to go through what it actually looks like when you scan one. Yeah? Okay. Let me get some of these magnets over here. So to make sure you guys can see the video, I'm just going to stay up here with the magnets, but just assume that they're kind of spread out over the levels. All right, so I can create whatever question I want. Maybe it's 5th grade, 7th period. I'm in the actual app. If I want to create a question, maybe it's, do we understand Plickers? A might be yes, B is no, C is kind of, and then I usually give my students the option like, what is Plickers? In case they have no idea and haven't been paying attention to me, which happens more often than I wish it would. So then I'm just going to create that question. Shows me the question, and then at the bottom there I can just scan it. And so I only have 9 magnets up here, but hopefully you guys can kind of see how quickly it'll scan them. So scans them, and then as I just hover over them, it populates that. I hit the check mark, and that gives me my feedback right there. From here, the other thing I really like is if I hit that check mark, maybe. Oh, there it is. So that'll give me a little breakdown. Each individual student, it'll tell me what their letters are, but then it also kind of gives me an overview of what the entire class has to feel about it, where their levels are, things like that. So, does that make sense for how Plickers actually work? And then, like I said, I know that maybe magnets don't work best in your classroom. For me, they're perfect because I can't have kids carrying around the Plickers. Some of the things that I've seen in other classrooms, you can get laminated ones. If you're going to laminate them, my understanding is that most laminators at schools have like a gloss finish, so the Plickers, like the camera doesn't read it very well. So if you want laminated ones, I'd recommend ordering them from Amazon or get like a non-gloss laminate. I've seen people, I don't know how many people have Chromebooks or folders, but I've seen a lot of teachers tape the Plicker card on the back of their Chromebook or on a folder so they can just have it and hold it up. I have a teacher in my school that's using them just for attendance. She's not quite to where she wants to use them for the levels, but she's like, I only have a class of 15. I can use this for attendance easier than I can a seating chart. So I think there's a lot of different things that are coming up, ways to figure it out. I've used it for multiple choice questions for my classroom to give them one multiple choice question, because I'm not going to give them like 5 different ones and they rotate it, come back, answer it, and then rotate it. I haven't found how giving them a multiple choice question is that advantageous in my classroom. Like, to ask them one multiple choice question, personally, I don't think that I'm going to get a lot out of that. I haven't figured out how to construct a good question for a multiple choice question that I'm going to get the information out of them that I want. So I'm just kind of right now trying to figure out other ways to use them, because right now I find it to be like it's been a completely classroom and teaching game changer for me. So I'm just trying to figure out how I can continue to do that. So, okay, so potential problems you guys might see in your classrooms. Any questions you might have for me about Plickers or Plagnets or, I don't know, anything?
Do you create the questions on the fly, or do you set them up before school? You know, how?
So, like, I set my levels up prior to. I guess I can just show you what my levels look like, although they're kind of embarrassing compared to the Dribble Quest. So, for example, that might be, like, that's what they did the other day, and I just type that up and throw that up on the slide. What I usually do, because I'm not as prepared as I should be, is once they have theirs up, I'm walking over creating that question, and the question just says offensive skills, and then I'll write level 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I usually do it kind of on the fly. I have internet in my gym, not a high bandwidth, but I have a little bit, so I can do that. Sometimes, like, if we're using the iPad for attendance or music, I'll just use my phone, kind of the same thing. But yeah, I just usually create them on the fly, and I don't give them much of a title at all. It's usually, because I don't think, like, they don't need to see it. It's just for me. But as you can see, like my 8th grade history here, it's offensive skill levels, passing levels, dribble quest, a bunch of attendance ones because we were doing assessments then. Did they understand nitro ball, volleyball? I've used them for some multiple choice questions, like how well do you understand this game? Sometimes for attendance, I haven't had as much success with this, but I'll do like an entry question. So for attendance, I'll just post the question, did you like the volleyball unit, just to get some feedback on what they liked. And then when they do attendance, they can change it to A, B, C, D if they want to give feedback then. I'm still doing attendance, but then I have another layer of data. I don't always do that because I found that they don't always read that question. So my answers we're not as good at that as we are at moving on along the skill levels, which again is probably a teacher issue and not a student issue. But so yeah, for me, the efficiency and the ease of using it is why I use it. Like I said, the classroom management aspect has been great, and I love technology, but if it doesn't work pretty seamlessly in my classroom, then it's no bueno to me. So I don't need that. All right. I don't really have a whole lot more for you guys if you don't have any questions or anything like that. I guess my big thing is, where am I taking this from now on? So my 2 big things that I know I need to work on is, I kind of alluded to it, getting a nice entry question so that there's more to the attendance. It's not just an attendance. They can actually answer a question and give me a little bit of feedback to start class over last class's development. And then also doing a better job with my levels. So instead of it having, like, the big push in our district, and there's some, I know there's a lot of debate about this, but is to try and get our standards-based grading levels not only tiered, but to tiered so they're qualitative and not quantitative. So instead of consistently or always or sometimes, it's supposed to just describe the quality of the work. So that's kind of something I'm working on to try and get my levels to reflect that quality instead of I passed it 10 times, I bounced past it 15 times, things like that, if that makes sense. So, okay. If you guys have questions about anything, like I said, please feel free to email me or tweet at me. My slide is up on the thing just this morning, so yeah.
Permission to submit.
Yeah, we'll
I
get
didn't
that
open up
op-
permission?
We'll get that opened up.
I worked really hard at that this morning too, and I thought for sure. So I got Plagnets figured out, but not Google Drive.
And also, there were some questions on Zoom about the size of the magnets and all of that, so we'll put that information on your slideshow too,
Okay?
on the last slide, and
Yeah.
that info will be on
Yep.
there too.
We will.
So let's give Travis a round of applause.